self-made millionaire Steve Siebold says anyone can hit life's jackpot.
Steve Siebold is a world-class expert on mental toughness training for increasing sales, developing people, and managing change. He's a best-selling author and popular television interview guest on mental toughness for building wealth, getting fit, and excelling in sports.
How does a rich person look at money? What do they see? They see
lots of it.
And just available out there in the universe?
It's everywhere, especially with the recession. We have total chaos in the economy all over the world, world economy.
So they see opportunity.
They see opportunity because there's all these problems. Because where there's chaos, there's opportunity to solve problems, to make money.
Someone said that the rich, having made a lot of money last year in the stock market, and maybe some money in the housing market, the rich have an obligation to spend that money to help the economy. And you say?
Why? Why are they obligated? I mean, these people didn't make their money robbing banks. They made their money solving problems.
Because it would be good for the economy.
So is solving problems. I mean, do people want their problems solved or not? If they want their problems solved, you're going to have to look to the innovators, the job producers, the creators.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steve Siebold.
Hey everyone, it's Steve Siebold. Welcome back to the Personal Development Podcast. Glad you're joining us. I'm really excited today. We have a great guest that I've known for at least 25 years, a fellow speaker, author, consultant, coach, very, very successful. And I'm going to read her introduction because I can tell you some personal things, but I want to make sure you get a full view of this very successful person that I'm going to talk about. I'm thrilled. And I've been waiting for a while to get her on the show, to have Jacqueline Whitmore as our guest today. Jacqueline is an internationally recognized business etiquette expert, author, as I said, and certified speaking professional with over 2 decades of experience. As the founder of the Protocol School of Palm Beach, which I am a graduate of from way back, I think in the 90s, she's helped countless individuals and organizations enhance their professional presence and improve their interpersonal skills. Jacqueline is also the author of several books, which we're going to talk about today. Poised for Success, which you can get on Amazon, and Business Class, Etiquette Essentials for Success at Work. And she's a sought-after expert who's been featured in the New York Times, USA Today, CNN, CNBC, Fox News, everything. As a matter of fact, when I started doing media about 15 years ago, Jackie was the first person I called because she's an expert in this, and she gave me some really good tips on how to do media, and that helped me do hundreds of interviews over the years. So please welcome my good friend Jacqueline Whitmore. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Steve. I remember the first time you called me about an interview, you said, "What do I wear?"
Yeah, I didn't do TV. And TV was not something I'd really done, but I knew you had. You'd been all over the media, and so you gave me some great tips in those first interviews.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah. I'm glad. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're traveling and speaking all over, and that's fantastic. The book that I know you've got several books, and this is the one I've really studied, which is Business Class, as I mentioned a second ago. Etiquette Essentials for Success at Work. And there's some great things about this book. I recommend this highly to everyone. Anyone who's in business whatsoever needs this book because it's going to give you the basics and keep you from, embarrassing yourself for one, but also make you look really polished and good. And that's what Jackie is a master at. So what motivated you really to write this book, Jackie? I know it's been a while since it's been out for a long time. It's been very successful. It's in multiple languages. What inspired you to write it?
Steve, I've been in business for 26 years. And when I wrote this book, this was my first book. And I remember I was speaking for a while before I wrote this book, and I knew I needed something, a calling card, if you will. And one of the best ways to position yourself as an expert in any industry is to write a book. And I had been speaking on etiquette and various facets of etiquette for probably 7 or 8 years. And I knew that I had to put all my knowledge down on paper and get it out into the world. And one of the beautiful things about being an author is your book oftentimes shows up in places that you may never go. And that's what this book has done for me. It has established me as an expert in my field. Plus, it has touched so many lives all over the world. So that's why I wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, it really it's so concisely written. It's so well written, and it's something you can move through pretty quickly and really get some real basics. I mean, I can't tell you after I attended this is before, of course, you wrote the book. You had the Protocol School of Palm Beach, and my wife and I, Dawn and I, attended, as you probably remember, way back. And then when you're doing your live seminars in Palm Beach, and I can't tell you how many times over the years after that. We always joke about that, about how we were kidding around and stuff with you during the seminar, during the coaching. But I can't tell you how many times I was at dinners, giving speeches just like you do, and you're at the dinner or the pre-dinner or the post-dinner or the awards dinner or the whatever it is. And I thought about you saying, okay, fork goes here. This is a small fork for the salad. I mean, all those little things make a difference. So you don't look like you're raised in a barn. And it really did give me a lot of confidence. So I appreciate you, mentoring me along the way there, because I never, like most people, I never had etiquette training, but it really does make a difference when you get in those circles, wouldn't you say?
Well, thank you so much. Dawn sent me an email one time after you all attended one of those events, and she had an etiquette question, and she, in the subject line, she said, WWJD, what would Jacqueline do?
Exactly. I remember that.
And I remember when I took the two of you out to this private dining tutorial at this really fancy restaurant in Palm Beach. It was wonderful. So I'm glad that the skills are still paying off.
Jackie, for years, we literally have been out so many times for dinner, and I'll no one will look, and I'll slurp the stones. Go, don't do it. Don't slurp the soup. Do not do it. And it's just, I'll tell Jackie. I'll call Jackie right now and tell her what you're doing. I can't tell you how many times we've had that conversation. I'm like, you wouldn't do it. She's like, I'll do it.
When you're an etiquette expert, no one wants to have dinner with you. And that is no joke. I mean, my social life went downhill as soon as I became certified.
That's right. Well, it's intimidating. You think, oh boy, I'm going to do something wrong here. But you, of course, you always made it fun, which is why we laugh about it. You always made it fun, and you're such a smooth speaker and coach and mentor. And so many people have asked me about you over the years, especially after I took that course that you did that program. And, I said, Jackie's, very down to earth, and she doesn't make it like that. So you don't feel strange or out of place or embarrassed or anything like that. You do such a good job with that, which is, I know, why you've been so successful. But
thank you so much. Well, I try to, because, it's really about kindness. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about civility and etiquette and all of that, but my definition of etiquette is knowing how to treat other people. It's a mindfulness, a mindset. It's being prepared and knowing as much information as you possibly can before you go into an event. And if you are prepared, you're going to be more confident. You're going to know what to do. Even when you don't know what to do, you can look around and observe because you are calm, cool, and collected. So really, it's all about kindness.
That makes sense. I like that definition. That's good. How important do you think it is in business, Jackie? You coach executives and companies and do seminars all over the world. How important is this in business etiquette?
My business has evolved, Steve. Back when I started in 1998, I was teaching people very different topics than I'm teaching now. Now I'm teaching, when I teach introductions, I have to include pronouns. I have to consider a whole lot of other things when I'm teaching etiquette, because we are living in such a diverse world, which is great. But when you say how important is etiquette in business, it's always been important, but even more so now, because we have a generation of young people who are transitioning from campus to career. These are the Gen Zs. These are the people who have not been exposed to social skills. This is the first generation that was born with computers, with cell phones, literally in their hands. And so they are accustomed to relating to other people through a screen. And so it's really important for this new generation to learn essential people skills because they're technically brilliant in many areas, but in other areas they're socially inept. So I've got my work cut out for me.
That's right. It is a different world. I mean, it really, and when you say, when you started back in 1998, I remember I started pretty much the same exact time you did, almost probably the same month. And we met in Fort Lauderdale back then. And neither one of us were pretty sure about this whole speaking business, personal development world, but we figured it out eventually.
We sure did. And I'm telling you, you took your business to all new heights. And thanks to Bill Gove, and I took your speech workshop as well. I mean, what an honor it was to meet him and for you to work with him, because talk about civility. That man, I mean, he was the epitome of that. Yeah,
he really was. He was a class act, no question about that. Well, yes. What do you think? What are the biggest mistakes that people make in etiquette? I know there's got to be a ton of them, but what are the biggest ones that you've seen over the years?
Well, the biggest one is obvious. It's technology. It's putting technology first and people second. I think that's obvious, but also little things like chewing with your mouth open or talking with your mouth full. These are things that drive people crazy, but yet, we never talk about it. Those are the little things. And I've always said it's the details that make the difference. It's the little things that you can do to stand out in this world. And of course, good manners don't get the attention that bad manners get. But I will say it's almost, it's like the it factor. And you've seen it in the speaking business. When someone walks on stage and they speak and everyone sits up and this speaker has their full attention, there's something special that person has. Well, that's the same in the world of etiquette. Someone can walk into a room full of strangers and make everyone feel comfortable and can talk to anybody about anything. And that person isn't pretentious. They don't put on any airs. They aren't stuffy. It's a person who can relate to anyone at any level, from the janitor to the CEO.
Yeah, I agree. That makes total sense. And so etiquette, it seems like in your definition is really more than just what we typically think of, like using the right fork and the right, all that. It's more than that, I guess, to you.
Yes, it's more than just wielding the right knife and fork. It's really about, as I said, I mean, the word that comes to mind is mindfulness. It's being mindful about how your behavior affects other people. And I'll give you a very quick example. We've been on a lot of airplanes, you and I. And so I have committed my fair share of faux pas. So one day, in the old days when people used to read newspapers, and I was one of those people, I remember I took an early morning flight and I opened up my newspaper and I was sitting in the window seat, which I never do. I always like to sit in the aisle seat, but I was sitting in the window seat, and this woman next to me, she was in the middle seat. She looked at me and she said, "Would you mind giving me a little more space?" Apparently, my hand was going a little wider than I thought. I was holding the newspaper maybe a little bit like this instead of like this. And I was in my own little world. I wasn't conscious about how my behavior was affecting her. Thank goodness she said it in a nice way. Of course, I corrected it right away, but I have never forgotten that I need to be a little bit more mindful when I'm on a plane. Maybe I look back before I recline my seat. Maybe I use the lavatory before the lights go down and everybody starts to sleep. These are just common sense types of things that we have to face every day.
This is inspiring to hear that you actually made a minor faux pas, but at least something for us. This is actually good news, Jackie.
I could go on and on, but I won't.
Well, the book is Business Class Etiquette Essentials for Success at Work. I highly recommend this book. I've been going over this book for years. It's just got so many of the great basics that we all need. It doesn't make you an expert, but it gives you confidence, when you go into a meeting. And so where's the best place to get the book, Jackie?
Well, the best place to get the book, Steve, is Amazon. And let me tell you something about this book really quickly. When I was getting ready to write an etiquette book, I thought to myself, and of course, this is that little voice that speaks to you that says you're no good or you're not good enough. And it said to me, what could you possibly write that hasn't already been written? And I mentioned this to a friend of mine, and she said, well, why don't you interview people for your book and let them say it for you? In other words, why don't you interview top CEOs and presidents of companies and ask them what their etiquette pet peeve is? What advice would they give to their employees? And that's exactly what I did. And that's why this book is different. It's not just my advice, but it's the advice of more than 50 top executives. And, if you look in the back of the book, I still can't believe that some of these people endorse my book. And that's another thing. When you write a book, you have to get endorsements from people you don't even know. And one being General Alexander Haig, who that's another story for another time, how I got that endorsement. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is when people see that you're trying to do good in the world, they will help you. And that's so important for young people to know, that if you don't have to be perfect at all, but if you just try to do the right thing, people will want to help you. And that's what happened in this case when I was writing this book.
Yeah, I think that was a brilliant decision you made to do that, because getting those testimonials is fantastic too. But just interviewing people, and it's amazing. You're right. I mean, when you're doing things and you ask people for help, especially really successful people, it's amazing how many of them say yes. And it's not like we haven't all heard no before. So what have we really got to lose by asking, right?
That's my saying. If you don't ask, the answer's always no.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in chapter 2, you say that the title is "Small Touches Equal Big Business." What small touches are the most important? What do you mean exactly by that, Jackie?
Well, it depends on your industry. For example, if you are in the wealth management industry and you're dealing with wealthy clientele and you're taking someone out to dinner, you're going to want to talk to them about something other than their money. I mean, yes, money's important. However, it's all about relationship building. So take a mental note, find out a little bit about that person. If they mention their alma mater, remember that. If they remember their children, if they say their children's names or where their children are getting ready to go to college, remember that. Because these are things that you can bring up in future conversations when you call them on the phone or take them out again. Well, how did Bobby do on his SAT test? What college did he decide? Did he decide on Notre Dame or UT? These are things that make you stand out because you remember the little details, the anniversaries, the dog's name, like Luna. I remember Luna. I saw Luna on Facebook. These are little things, but you know what? They make a difference and they make the other person feel special.
Sure, that makes sense. How's Rex since he got out of jail? What happened? So hopefully they're good things to remember, right?
Exactly. You don't want to bring up unsavory topics.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that's funny. How important, just switching gears a little bit, to dress? How important is dress? I know the times have changed. Like, for example, I always promise myself, during speeches or, meetings or whatever in business, that when I got successful enough, I was going to stop wearing ties, even if they didn't like it. And I stopped doing that a while ago. And that was like I threw all my ties away. It's the greatest thing that ever happened. But, now that was about 15 years ago, but now it doesn't seem like ties are a big deal anymore. How important is just dress overall for success in today's culture?
There's a difference between getting dressed and dressing up. I mean, everybody gets dressed in the morning, but dressing up it requires more thought. So for example, we'll go back to the financial industry. the wealth management industry. If you know that you're meeting with a VIP client, you want to put your best foot or face forward. You don't want to show up in blue jeans and a t-shirt. You want to put forth some effort. You want to be neat and tidy and clean, of course. I mean, that's the basics. But I've always said, dress for your client's comfort, not your own. If I dress for my own comfort, I would be wearing yoga pants every single day, because that's how I live. I live a very casual lifestyle. But when I'm in front of an audience, I always consider that audience and what will make them comfortable. I'll give you an example. One of my very big clients, he hates the color red. And I'll tell you why he doesn't like red, because that means he's in the deficit. Red means deficit. So somebody gave me that tip, and I never wear red when I speak at their corporation. And these are the little things that we need to be mindful of. I mean, if you're not sure, call someone and ask.
That's a really good tip. I've never heard the red, but that makes sense. They don't want to be in the red. That's that's a really good tip. One of the things you mentioned is you say you call one of the chapters, you talk about fashion faux pas. So what are some of the biggest fashion faux pas?
There are so many. I mean, just wearing your pajamas to school. I mean, we're seeing that. You ask anyone who works at a university, and they will tell you that they see a lot of the students come to class looking like they just rolled out of bed, and many of them did. And then they'll transition to the workforce and they'll wear similar things that are sloppy, things that don't fit well, things that are not clean. I mean, these are just basics. I would say stay away from anything torn, anything that is soiled, anything that doesn't fit properly. I mean, it's just common sense.
Yeah. No question. You know, you won't, well, you will believe this, I guess, now that you just mentioned that. Literally last year, we were looking to hire someone. So I went to the local college and I talked to the director of the department. And so we're going to hire this college kid, senior in college. And I said, give me some of the ups and downs of this kid or this guy. And he said, well, he's a smart kid, but one of the downs is he wears pajamas to class. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. He said I said, he's a senior in college. He wears pajamas to class. And he said he does pretty much every day, a different pair of pajamas, but he wears pajamas. I said, the judgment, that seems like a lack of judgment. So I called the kid and I said, this is what he said. And he goes, would that be a problem if I wore pajamas to work, if I worked for you? I'm not kidding. This is what he said.
Wow.
I didn't even know what to say. I said, I don't think it's going to work. So that was the end of that interview. It's a 21-year-old college kid.
It's amazing. And even if that kid is working from home and he's doing Zoom interviews with your clients or whoever, you don't want him to show up looking like he just rolled out of bed. And during the pandemic, I put together a whole course on virtual online etiquette. And this is specifically for people who do any kind of meetings online, which most of us do now. It's like, take your laundry and put it in another room. Make your bed if you're going to have the camera in your bedroom. It's the simple things. Don't eat on camera. Don't drink alcohol when you're on camera. These are just quick tips, but they do make a difference. And you want to stand out in a good way, not a bad way.
Yeah, it's amazing you have to say some of these things, but I agree. You see the faux pas happen over and over, and some of the stories with the Zoom, with people showing up on Zoom calls and all kinds of states of mind, and yeah, it's crazy. Jeez. Well, moving along with outside of fashion, what do you think? What role? And you and I have talked a little about this over the years. What role does civility play as it relates to etiquette?
Civility, well, we know that civility is sorely lacking in our society. And when I looked up the word, I won't say who I asked, Alexa, because I've got one in my office. But when I looked up the word, it simply said kindness and consideration for other people. And it gave me the example, if you're driving down the road and you stop at a stop sign and somebody else stops at the other stop sign perpendicular from you, by you allowing the other person to go first, that's being civil. And these are the kind of things that don't require any kind of effort on our part. It doesn't cost any money to be civil. It's easy. It's really what a lot of us were brought up doing anyway. And etiquette, in my mind, is something that we weren't taught in schools. We might not even been, I might not have known how to use the right fork in certain situations. I don't know if I ever used a fish fork ever until I was an adult. These are things like that I classify under the word etiquette. So civility and etiquette are not the same thing in my book.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting, because like you say, it's such an uncivil time all around the world. I mean, it's not just in the States, this is going on, as all over. And there's a lot of anger out there and uncivility. And yeah, it's a whole, but we could probably spend a whole show just on that. It's pretty crazy out there.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, well, again, you guys, the book is Business Class, and I highly recommend this. Get it on Amazon. It's a quick read. You're going to get some great tips. I think overall, the book helped me the most, probably where it helped me the most was confidence. It gives you confidence in social settings. And one of the things you talk about in the book is moving on to sort of networking with people. And I know you're a master networker because I've seen you do it over the years. And you talk about mingleability. So can you tell us what that is and why it's so important?
Well, I am a natural networker. If you've ever taken the DISC test, DISC, I'm a high I, which is influencer. And so I enjoy being out in public. I enjoy talking to strangers and getting to know other people. I'm curious by nature. So mastering your mingle ability is it's putting yourself in situations where you have to create relationships or you want to create relationships. And that's really what business is all about. At the end of the day, people do business with people they believe, like, and trust. I call that the BLT factor, believe, like, and trust. And so one way to acquire that believability and that trustworthiness is being able to relate to people. And that's telling stories, getting to know what their story is, having a genuine concern for who that person is as a human being. And this is not easy work. It takes a lot of effort. And that's why a lot of people experience social anxiety before they go to an event. It's hard work. And I can understand that. And especially now, there is so much social anxiety going on in our culture at the moment. And so I always say, when you walk into a room, it's not about the food and the free drinks. It's all about who you meet and who you get to mingle with. And even if it's just one person in that room, it's not about meeting everybody. But if you can go away meeting one interesting person, it was worth your time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Well, another thing you talk about are conversation stoppers. What are some of those?
Well, one of them is the braggart. That's a person who likes to tell you everything about themselves. Somebody who likes to brag. There's the conversational rambler. This is the person who goes on and on and on about his or her, their troubles. And that's what I teach in my classes, is how to escape the conversational rambler without being, how to disengage without being rude. There's the one upper. If you're sick, she's sicker. If you're rich, he's richer. I mean, these are conversation stoppers. These are people that don't want to relate to you because it's all about me, me, me. They want to talk about themselves, and that gets boring after a while. I believe that conversation is a lot like a tennis match, and you can relate to this, Steve, because you play tennis. And I believe that when someone throws a ball your way, you hit it back. Well, the same thing with conversation. I throw a topic and you throw it back.
Yeah, you're so right about this, and I've always been amazed, because you and I, being in the same kind of business, you're always in front of crowds or cameras or both, and you're mingling with people all the time. And Bill Gove, years ago, we went on the road. We played this little game because, as you know, we were on the road the last 5 years of Bill's life. And he said, see, when we go to these programs, these pre-speech deals, post-speech things, whatever, backstage, whatever it was, talking to all these different people, lots of people, for a long time, see how long you can keep them talking and keep asking them questions before they'll ask you a question. And we used to play this game, and it was amazing to me. Wherever we traveled, anywhere in the country, the world, whatever it was, you could just literally, and I found this personally as well, and I'd like to hear your feedback on this if you have the same experience or something different. But Bill and I used to always joke that you could just ask questions forever. They'll never ask you a question, hardly ever, until you run into a more sophisticated person, or at least conversationally sophisticated, at least. Well, what's your take on that? Have you had that same experience or no?
I agree. And I'm a very inquisitive person, and I ask a lot of questions. That might be the journalist in me because I majored in journalism in school, and I love to get to know people and what makes them tick. But I also have noticed that many times I'm the one doing most of the talking. And what is so refreshing is when you have someone in your presence who asks you about you. Tell me about you. What makes your heart sing? What would you do in this situation? And when I teach business meeting etiquette, and I say, if you're chairing a meeting, it's your responsibility to get everyone engaged. Don't just sit there and let a few people speak. Say something like, well, Steve, how do you feel about that? Because everybody's there for a reason. But I agree with you, Steve. I think it's much easier for people like you and I to ask questions because that's what we're comfortable doing. But very few people will ask us questions in return.
Yeah, it's an interesting social experiment, as it is. It's crazy, but if you just keep asking questions, it's amazing how long you can keep people talking. And like you say, it's you'll learn a lot as well. One of the other things you talk about in the book is techno-etiquette, technology etiquette, and I know that's evolved even since the book's come out. What tips do you have for us on that?
You're absolutely right. This has evolved big time, especially now with AI and virtual conferencing, all of these things. I mean, it has changed the face of etiquette. But when I say techno etiquette to my clients now, it generally means cell phone etiquette, texting etiquette, which is how a lot of people like to relate, especially the Gen Zs. They feel that it's proper. It's okay to go ahead and send a text to their clients. And that's not always the case. Email etiquette is still huge. Very few people know how to write a proper email. They still CC the entire world, thinking that everybody needs to read that email. Their emails are too long, too laborious. They forget to send attachments. They forget to put things in the subject line. It goes on and on and on. So I have a full course on email etiquette, just teaching people the steps. Here is how to compose a proper email, and this is how your email is going to get read.
Wow, I'll bet that's a popular course.
It is. And so what I do is I give my students sample emails that have been written poorly, and I ask them to work as a team to rewrite the emails the way that it should be written, including proper spelling, proper grammar, proper punctuation. And it is a tough class.
I'll bet, but a valuable one. So where can people are interested in that, Jackie? How can they find out about that class?
They can go to my website, etiquetteexpert.com, and I have a speaking page, and there's a list of all of my courses.
Okay, good. Okay, it's etiquetteexpert.com. And you have to understand how to spell etiquette, because that's not the easiest word.
Right.
That's one of the tough things about being in the etiquette business, right? They got to spell that word. That's not the easiest
Well,
word.
and a lot of people don't know how to pronounce it. I know right away when someone calls me and they say, I want to take an etiquette class, I know that they're not too serious.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, another thing you reference in the book, you talk about avoiding international incidents. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Well, I'll give you a quick story about an international incident. One time I went to a friend's house, and he and his wife were from Egypt. And I walked in just to stay a few minutes. He wanted to show me his wedding pictures. They had just gotten married. And his wife came out of the kitchen and she greeted me and she said, "May I get you something to drink?" And I said, "Oh, no, thank you. I'm good." And so I sat down and he was showing me the wedding pictures, and she went back in the kitchen, and a few minutes later she came out and she said, "May I get you something to drink?" And I said, "Oh, no, thank you. No, thank you." And she went back in the kitchen, and then she came out again and she said, "Please, may I get you something to drink?" And that third time, it dawned on me that maybe I should say yes. And the fact that I was refusing hospitality was an international incident. It was a faux pas. As soon as I sat down, I should have accepted water or tea or something, just to have something in front of me, because it was an insult for me to say no thank you each and every time. And unless you are schooled in certain protocols, if you're going to certain countries, you're bound to make those kind of mistakes.
Yeah, that's a great story. And you're right. When you travel internationally, I remember in so many countries that we would go to, when one of the clients or audience members or whatever it is hands you a business card, they hand it to you with two hands, or they take it with two hands if you hand them a business card, because it's supposed to be, it's so important to them, more important than it is here. That's the way they explained it to me over the years. But they take it almost like offense to it if you just kind of flip it to them like we do here. Just those little things. We used to have an office in Sydney, and I went down to the first couple of times, and the audience, we'd have small workshops, and people say, "Hey, we'll meet you at the pub after the program tonight." Say, "No, I can't really do that. I got to prepare for tomorrow." And the Aussies are completely offended if you don't meet them in the pub. And they really are. It's a joke. We laugh about it, but they really are, because I didn't go the first night. And one of the Aussies came up to me and said, "You don't have to drink a lot, just show up," because it's just sort of one of our cultural things. And that, I learned it when we opened the office there. I learned that was kind of an important thing to them. So it's interesting, isn't it? Different. Yeah. And you either look like you fit in or you don't.
Right. And in a way that was insulting for you not to participate, even if all you have to do is show up for 15 minutes and they will love you forever.
Yeah, exactly right. It was almost like you're too good otherwise to show up at the pub with them. And they just those little things, but it really does make such a difference. Mm-hmm. Another thing in chapter 9, you talk about the power of gratitude. This is one of my favorite chapters in the book. How does gratitude apply to business and etiquette?
Oh my goodness. I think it applies to everything in life. Just being grateful for and it may sound Pollyanna, it may sound trite, but really that attitude of gratitude, it's kind of like the law of attraction. What you put out will come back to you. And when you're grateful, when you do affirmations, I've got one right here on my desk. I put little sticky notes on my desk saying, "I'm awesome, I'm smart, I'm a great writer." That's because I need the reassurance. I feel like other people do too. And just giving people that thumbs up, that good job, you did a great job, I really appreciate you. That is so lacking in our society now, because most people go around feeling stressed out, insignificant, overworked, underappreciated. And if you're that one person in their life or in their day who says, "You really did a good job, I really appreciate that," or you look nice today, that's a lovely pin you're wearing," that costs absolutely nothing. And it could make somebody's day. And there are so many times, and I'm guilty of it too, where we just kind of put our blinders on and we don't notice what's going on around us, and we don't acknowledge those people who are helping us or in a service capacity. And I think just having that attitude of gratitude or the power of gratitude really helps not only other people, but it also helps you internally.
Well, I couldn't agree more. It's almost like the world is just starving for recognition, just to be recognized or for themselves, or it just seems like that's lacking so much more than it used to be even a few years ago. It seems like it's really changing that way. So what do you think about things like thank you notes? How does that fit into gratitude, or is that still relevant?
I think thank you notes are relevant. I keep a supply of thank you notes right here on my desk at all times with nice stamps, with a nice pen. And that puts me in the habit of writing them because they're in front of me. Out of sight is out of mind. And if you've got them in front of you, and that's what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. When I interviewed several people for business class, one of the keys to success in their book was writing thank you notes. And you wouldn't believe that people still do it. And it stands out. It makes you stand out. And the other person who receives it, my gosh, think about all the junk mail we receive these days. And if you get something in the mail, tangible, that looks nice and that acknowledges something that you did, I mean, that really makes that person stand out. And I think that thank you notes are essential, especially during job interviews. An email is fine. Do send an email thank you. Don't forget. But the handwritten note is what, it may not get you the job, but it will make you stand out.
I couldn't agree more with that, Jackie. How you think about how many thank you notes have you received in the mail in the last 12 months? Or 12 years for that matter. I mean, it's just a thing that people used to do more. And now it just, like you say, we just get junk mail and that's it. And so it sticks out more. It's more powerful than now, probably because no one does it hardly. Wouldn't you say?
I would say so. And I was taught by my mom to always have a supply of birthday cards in my desk drawer and get well cards. I mean, she was really good at that. But of course, she was born in another era, another time. But I will say one of the wonderful things that I learned from her is to write thank you notes. And it is important in business because, again, it's one of those things that makes you stand out, and you don't get too many of these handwritten notes.
Yeah, you really don't. I mean, not anymore. We used to get a few a year maybe, or, whatever, but not really too much anymore. So I think that's a great tip. Any final thoughts, Jackie, to help the viewers, listeners, when it comes to etiquette, just in life in general?
I would just say the one thing that helps me with my confidence is being prepared. And, as a speaker, when you're getting ready to go on that stage, you don't wing it. You just don't go on that stage. And yes, speaking from the heart is important. But I remember learning from you and Dawn that even if you make little notes on index cards before you go on stage, you don't have to write word for word for word, but you need to know what you're going to talk about to this audience. Well, I think etiquette is the same way. Whenever you go to an event that is important, it's really essential for you to know who's going to be there, what should you wear. In fact, if I know what time the dinner is, I'll usually eat something ahead of time so that I'm not focused more on the meal. And I definitely don't want to focus on the bar because that could be a disaster. But it's more, a business meal is more about the business and less about the meal. And the way you can position that is by doing your homework.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Jackie, I've known you for so many years. Congratulations on all your success. Again, you guys, the book is Business Class, Etiquette Essentials for Success at Work. get this book, study this book. I think you tell me if I'm wrong, Jackie, but it seems like if they read this book, I mean, if someone is not wanting to be a coach and an etiquette coach, would this be enough to give them the basics?
Absolutely. In fact, I have a Train the Trainer program, and I designed it around this book. And I say to all of my Train the Trainer certified attendees, if you read this book, you're good. You'll know how to teach etiquette. I mean, maybe not to the degree that I do, but I mean, it does give you the basics for you to go out and be your best self.
Yeah, there should really be a course based on, I mean, I'm sure you've thought about this in school, where you take a course based on this book and then it just gives you confidence. I mean, that's how I always felt about it. After I read the book when it first came out. It just gives you confidence in something that most of us don't have any training in, and we just sort of wing it. And like you say, pros don't wing it no matter what it is. I mean, it's something you really need to study.
No, and being a speaker, that in order for it to look easy, you've got to be prepared. The people who make it look easy are the ones who study and study and study. And that's what etiquette is all about. You can't just learn this overnight. You have to practice every single day. And I'm speaking for myself too, because I'm not perfect by any means. And sometimes I get in situations where I say to myself, well, what should I do? And if I just say to myself, put people first and make that person feel special, I'll be okay. I'll be okay.
It must be weird when you're Jackie and you have to say WW, like what would JD, what would Jackie do? And you're Jackie. So what do you say? Well, WW, what would I do?
Well, fortunately, when you're in my industry, you have a lot of resources to rely on. I have a lot of friends I can call and say, what should I do?
Exactly. Well, that's great. Jackie, I really appreciate it. I know you're running around the country, promoting your books and speaking and all these great things. So I appreciate you taking the time to be on the interview. And again, congratulations on all your success.
Thank you, Steve, and much success to you.
Thanks, Jackie. Take care.
Thanks.
All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. I would really recommend going over this interview again. Get this book. I'm telling you, Jackie's the person. I've been in this business, the speaking business, personal development for, 25 plus years. And Jackie's the best of the best. That's why I had her on. There's lots of etiquette speakers out there. There's lots of etiquette authors. The reason I wanted Jackie on is because I've known her for so long, and she is the best person in this business. She's the gold standard we all go to. Speakers and communicators and authors and all the rest of it. So get this book, as you just heard her say. I mean, this is all you really need unless you're going to teach this topic. Get the basics down, and it'll be worth its weight in gold to you. I've had this book for so long, and it's just been a great resource. So get the book. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next show.